All right, welcome to America This Week. I'm Matt Taibbi.
And I'm Walter Kern.
Walter, it's Back to the Future. How many times have we seen this movie? Flag burning is back.
Well, yes, and anti-flag burning is back in particular because I don't know that I have spent a year in a Republican administration since, I don't know, the 90s when burning the flag hasn't been a burning issue.
Right.
It's never settled because, of course, it can't be because, of course, the First Amendment protects it. But they trot it out because they want the left to defend flag burning.
Well, that and something else too. They want to go after the pride, the hate crime enhancements, and this other stuff.
Well, and that's legitimate. Actually, I mean, it's a legitimate end, not necessarily legitimate means. It does throw into high relief the protections that are desired for rainbow flags and rainbow crosswalks and other things.
Right.
Right. So I guess it's a fight fire with fire. Another game theory, Trumpian art of the deal thing. But
yeah. Right. This is one of these things where we have to figure out, is this 4D chess or is this just what it looks like? So for those who don't know what we're talking about, Trump, there is a new executive order prosecuting burning of the American flag by Donald Trump. Should we go to SOT 1 here? Listen to Trump on this.
Lastly, sir, this is an executive order on flag burning. It charges your attorney general.
Will you listen to this? This is very important. Flag burning. All over the country, they're burning flags. All over the world,
they're burning the flags.
And,
they're burning the flags.
Very sad court. I guess it was a 5-4 decision. They called it freedom of speech, but there's another reason which is perhaps much more important. It's called death. Because what happens when you burn a flag is the area goes crazy. If you have hundreds of people, they go crazy. You can do other things. You can burn this piece of paper. But when you burn the American flag, it incites riots at levels that we've never seen before. People go crazy.
All right.
Levels we've never seen.
Levels we've never seen before. That's the levels. Okay. I don't know, Walter. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts about this, but
this is an easy one for me.
I know.
I mean, I don't want to, go get a flag and burn it right now and be the first person arrested, but I might, if only because this is a false flag, as it were. This is not going to stand. It's silly. The burning of an American flag is protected speech, and the burning of a pride flag, I would guess, should be protected speech.
Absolutely.
And the burning of any piece of cloth that doesn't lead to, arson or fire that goes out of control. I suppose you could use a flag as a Molotov cocktail to start a building fire, and that might not be protected, but otherwise.
Yeah. So obviously you hear in that soundbite that the argument is that burning a flag is sort of a magically inciting kind of thing. Now, the irony of this, of course, is that when the Democrats went after Trump over J6, they did exactly the same thing by trying to hammer open or widen the definition of incitement to include things that are obviously legal speech in a variety of J6 arenas. They did that same trick. And Trump is really saying that burning the flag is not protected speech, but it's a form of incitement. But incitement is an incredibly high bar legally.
Right.
It's incitement to imminent lawless action, which is definitely not burning a flag.
Am I stupid, or do I have Alzheimer's? Has this not been settled in court at this point? I mean, my God, somebody please.
I know it just keeps coming back. I mean, I feel like it's an old I don't know, Brady Bunch rerun I've seen 50 times or something like that. But the argument is that things are different now. And we have to look at this more seriously for a bunch of reasons. Oddly enough, I tweeted out this was stupid right away, and Chris Rufo took a shot at me immediately. Well, he didn't take a shot.
What did Chris say?
So he said something to the effect of, I'm sympathetic to the argument that burning the American flag is protected speech, but right now we are putting people in prison for spitting their tires over the pride flag. So it might be a good idea to have the debate about which symbols are sacred in America today. So
okay, I'll have it. None.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
None. That's
You know,
none more black. Yeah.
This free speech issue sucks, right? Because it's always forcing one to defend, or not even defend. It's always forcing one to make points and open the parentheses to include all sorts of things that, you wouldn't do yourself, that you don't want your kids doing, that you might turn away from or yell at someone with your protected speech to stop doing. But the brackets are pretty wide on this one. Every time they close down, nothing really is accomplished, frankly. The Republicans or the independents or the libertarians or the heterodox Democrats should realize, I think, that nothing has been accomplished in the history of mankind by prohibiting certain speech.
And it's never.
And sadly, that includes burning a damn cross.
Right.
Not on somebody's lawn, not, as part of a death threat. But I hate to say it, we live in a world of language. And when we start policing language to the point that it is equated with violence per se, then we've started down a road we always end up having to back up off of anyway.
Yeah, and so the people who are defending this are pointing to the text of the executive order, saying, which is very specific. It basically it says that we're not trying to police burning flags in the context of something that isn't otherwise a criminal act. But in that case, why have the executive order at all? Just ban the act, whatever the real underlying crime is. So.
Well, and that's why it is 4D chess, Matt. I mean, obviously, they put a loophole in there. They basically, how can I put it? They opened the First Amendment clause right in the executive order, and they know that this is provocation, and it's meant to get us discussing hate speech in general. And
right.
And we know last week, wasn't there some problem in Florida with somebody, I don't know, driving over a pride crosswalk or something like that? I mean, listen, this has gotten out of hand. The sacredness of symbols and of people from offense and symbolic offense has gone way too far. And the correction isn't to, now do a right-wing version of it. It's to stop.
Are we making history? Is this going to be our first mention of the term woke right? Because this is one of those big theories, but this is exactly the same thing. But the argument that this is being brought up specifically in the context of this Florida incident, it's Florida, right? I think it's a bunch of kids who, I guess, burned rubber over a pride crosswalk, and they got charged with felony mischief.
Dude, if you put a flag on a damn road, what do you expect? People are going to burn rubber on it,
Right.
They're going to pee on it. They're going to, whatever, the dude's going to pee. The nihilists are going to come into the Big Lebowski's living room and pee on the pride flag. That's what's going to happen.
Hey, man, not on the pride flag, man.
It really tied the state of Florida together.
But okay, so I am not a fan of hate crime enhancement laws in general. Like, I think murder is always a hate crime, pretty much. Um, and we don't need to be adding things to murder to make it a worse crime. Like it's an end around to the First Amendment. Essentially, what they're trying to do is sort of get to a hate speech law by adding a hate speech element to other crimes. And so here you have a mischief charge or a vandalism charge or an arson charge or whatever it is, and you add a hate enhancement on it, and it essentially becomes a speech crime, right? Which is a stupid legal gimmick. And there's another one that's just been passed in Colorado that we're going to have to get to. But I'm definitely not in favor of putting kids in jail for burning rubber over a pride flag, but that doesn't mean you do another dumb thing to make up for it. Right?
Well, in no, it doesn't in in an abstract and principled sense. In a political sense, though, maybe it inflames the debate to the point where it becomes a debate. Because frankly, it's probably time we revisit the whole damn thing and lay it to rest yet again, so that in 8 years it can come back, or 4 years. But for the moment, we probably should look at the whole slate of ridiculous, symbolic illegalities and wipe the table again. It just keeps growing back. I mean, it's the perpetual temptation, I guess, in politics to make your symbols sacred. But it's fucking politics.
But it's particularly upsetting, though, Walter, because I feel like this is being repeated over and over again, and you see those numbers, like the Pew survey of the number of people who think. First, they did a survey of the number of people who thought there should be laws against hate speech. Then they did surveys of people who thought there already are laws against hate speech. And we've seen that the graph keeps moving in one direction because people are continually led to believe that hate speech is against the law in the United States. They don't know that we expressly permit hate speech in the United States, that we don't allow any of those restrictions. And you see all these stories. Like, I wasn't even aware of this. I saw today, news stories about how this was covered, and the journalists on TV weren't even asking, how is this a crime, or what makes that illegal, or anything like that.
Well, that suggests that Trump was smart, sadly. That suggests that they don't want to go there, that they know it's a trap, that they realize that if they start with the flag, they end with the pride flag.
Yeah. And, maybe there's something to that. I don't know. I don't love it, though, because even if this goes through, it's going to reinforce the idea even
no Republican president has ever suffered for this flag absolutism. I mean, even sophisticates like George Bush Sr. went in for it. Remember, didn't they?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, even the cosmopolitans go in for it. It costs you very little it costs you almost nothing with your base, and it stirs the other side up. But the other side, having abandoned civil libertarian principles, are now stuck. And that's why I think it is a squeeze play. Somebody said, dare them to come at you. And he actually did so, and so the other thing that this brings to mind is that they're expecting riots. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Matt, you're the reality-based guy, and I'm from outer space, and that's the way that, the division of labor will work on this show. And there has been persistent rumors or speculation that some of this heavy policing of Washington, D.C., and now perhaps of Chicago is being done in anticipation of civil disorder that might come from the prosecution of leading politicians that may be in the works. We have every reason to believe that Michael Bolton is
Michael Bolton.
Michael, sorry, John.
They're kind of the same, actually.
Yeah, exactly. He's sort of like what the pride flag is to the American flag. Michael Bolton is to John Bolton.
Right. Yeah. And plus there's a facial hair to
Right.
side hair thing going on there.
But I guess what I'm saying is that is this being done in anticipation of fall civil disorder? It might be. You know, are the ICE raids going to ramp up? Is once the kids are back at the colleges and let's say politician X, who we thought was untouchable, is indicted and people start the final phase of the David Brooks revolution, which he called for back in whenever May,
Right.
which hasn't actually started in earnest. Is this in some way an anticipation of that? Could be.
It could be. The other argument that I saw a lot online today is, things are different now because the tenor of the demonstrations, it's not just in the abstract, burning the flag in protest. This is a legitimate terrorist movement that it symbolizes anti-American, and we have to protect the flag. And
what are they talking about? Pro-Palestinian?
Yeah, pro-Palestinian movement. So it's genuinely revolutionary, which, by the way, isn't illegal either. But whatever. Unless it's imminent. In other words, like the courts slogged through that in the 20th century. The whole idea that you can actually be in favor of overthrowing the government.
Well, I'll just say that I won't be surprised at all if once everybody gets back to Columbia University and so on, and once these grand juries render their verdicts and perhaps indict some of these politicians, there isn't a call that goes out even from the highest, mainstream sources for civil resistance to Trump. Okay.
Right.
And it strangely didn't happen over the summer. People expect this over the summer, the so-called summer of love, but the summer was pretty peaceful and pretty quiet.
It was actually.
It was a Beach Boys summer, but that might change. And so maybe he's giving himself a tool here, or maybe he is just sort of setting the tone for how can I put it? For what they expect will come. See, all along, and I think the big problem with covering Trump has been this. They're proactive. They're doing things that we've never seen done. They are going to dig in. They call it revenge on the left or in the media, but they are going to dig in to the people that they think have broken the law in past political, administrations from Obama to Biden. And that's going to be a little bit unprecedented. Not since the 70s will we have seen that kind of thing. So, though, I mean, in a weird way, it's not that unprecedented. We had Iran Contra, real figures, were prosecuted there. And in the 70s, people went to jail over Watergate. I mean, Chuck Colson, et cetera. But I think that we may be looking at a fall of quite remarkable disorder.
Yeah. And have we talked since the Bolton thing happened? I don't think we have, right?
Not really. No. When did it happen? I mean, there is a distortion.
Friday, I think, right?
Yeah, there's a distortion of time, meaning that the amount of attention something is paid on NBC makes it seem like it's been going on for longer. I mean, I'm already tired of the Bolton affair, but I guess it's 5 days ago or something.
It's so amazing. I mean, would you have ever predicted that John Bolton would become a cause célèbre of the Democrats and even left-leaning people? It's so bizarre on so many levels.
But that goes again to the trolling thesis.
Mm-hmm.
Just as this flag burning order may be a form of trolling, I think making John Bolton, now I'll never not be able to call him Michael, go first was trolling, because it forced the other side to defend perhaps their most hated golem, their most hated, ridiculous looking mustachioed villain. I mean, it even beyond Liz and Dick Cheney, the embrace of Bolton looks like utter capitulation. To see Bernie,
oh my God,
it was Bernie's tweet. I don't agree with him on anything, but dude, and I don't know. I haven't seen the search warrant, but I would gather that if they're going first with Bolton, they've got something that they at least believe is of substance, and also because it immediately was compared to Mar-a-Lago, which has turned out to be the most mysterious raid in the history of mankind. We don't know what was obtained. We don't know what was searched for. And we don't know why they did it. And we still don't know. And we've got Kash Patel going out and saying there was no reason. Well, God, there had to be some reason. I mean, did they want a pair of panties from Melania? Did they want, the Playboy magazine that's buried under Donald Trump's,
I can just imagine the
shirts
using like a robot to pick up that Playboy magazine or whatever it is, so no human hands have to touch it. The idea that they didn't have any real predication to go into Mar-a-Lago, that is a story that everybody is whispering about now. With Bolton, the initial story was that it was just a continuation of the previously dropped case involving his book, which what was the title of his book? It had The Room Where It Happened. It was
Matt, someday can we do a collage of political book titles? James Comey, Higher Calling, Hillary, It Takes a Village. Doesn't Kamala have one out now? I forget what it's called. Maybe we can.
Yeah, we should look. Maybe we can smash them all together. It takes a village in a higher room where it happened, or something like that, right? Or a higher village. I don't know. They have to be combined,
right? And what was
107 days? What was
the last? It was called 107 days.
Kamala's, yeah.
What does that refer to?
The amount of time that she had in her campaign.
How long it took for her to lose?
Yeah.
From my surprise ascension to the non-voted for candidate for the Democratic nomination to my ignominious loss, 107 days.
To quiet alcoholic stupor. I'm sorry, I can't say that. But these books are ridiculous, right? The gravitas of all of them,
Biden just
higher whatever.
Biden just got 10 million for one. It will be written in the vocabulary of the Berenstain Bears, at a second grade level,
Who, by the way, okay, I had a conversation this weekend with somebody about this. What's the scam in America with book advances? So in Russia, there was actually a thing called the authors scandal, where they were bribing Yeltsin officials by giving them overpriced book deals for books they never even wrote and nobody ever read. But in America, we have versions of that. Like every politician gets these gigantic advances for books nobody reads.
Have you ever caught somebody reading one?
No, I did once see someone in an airport reading the Obama book, which, by the way, the first one I thought wasn't bad if he actually wrote it. But beyond that, no. I mean, the only people I ever see reading those books are people like me who read them for, journalistic reasons, like the Shattered book, right? Was actually kind of interesting.
What was the Michelle Obama book? A publisher told me that one actually sold a few copies. Becoming Me or something like that.
Yeah, we'll have to. Mystery producer, can we find the Michelle Obama book?
So when I'm in Las Vegas in the winter, where I spend a few months every winter,
deep state. Sorry,
I live in a very sketchy part of town. Let's just put it that way. And I walk down this crime-riddled street full of fentanyl and ice addicts. No, I do. I mean, where people are doing what appears to be super slow motion Tai Chi after having, had their drugs delivered. And I go to a Savers. Savers are for, becoming.
Becoming. There we go. Yep. Awesome.
Okay.
All right. We have to put these all together. We should get like a computer scrambler. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, the Spy magazine, Title-O-Matic. But anyway, so I go into Savers, which, as I say, is a for-profit thrift store. Everything's like $5, but is worth like 50 cents. and I scan the bookshelves because every once in a while, America being what it is, a great classic and a beautiful edition is being sold for $1.
Right.
And I will tell you that the scads of totally unread, pristine political books they're an actual obstacle. I'm looking for that copy of Machiavelli's The Prince in, pseudo leather with uncut pages. But I have to go through like 7 copies of Becoming and, It Takes a Village and whatever. And you see them there and I go like, do they even ship these to bookstores?
They go straight to the Goodwill rack, right?
Well, they're probably, there's an intermediate warehousing that goes on where they're stacked. And who knows how many they actually print. But I think they do go through the motions of pretending the book's going to sell. And then they're shunted off, like a decision tree. Savers, Goodwill, in Utah, Deseret Industries. And they immediately become available to the wider public. But they aren't bought there either.
Right.
I mean,
Not even for $1. Not even
50 freaking cents. And they come and they're still in theaters. You know what I mean? They're like still in theaters. The book just was published like 2 weeks ago and Savers already has 17 copies.
You know who we need to put on this case, Walter? The weights and measures guy.
We've never properly explained that, Matt. I'm going to explain that. Matt and I are coming back from the Republican convention one night in Milwaukee, and we get along because Matt had the foresight to not get a hotel room until 3 hours before the convention started. So we're staying practically in another county.
Right, it's like in Michigan or something.
Yeah. This long, mysterious ride through many other towns. And so we got like an hour with this dude. And he tells us that he has gone to Goodwill Industries, which he basically, and if there are any enterprising journalists out there, he basically says that Goodwill Industries is kind of a money laundering operation, that it's a state-by-state operation, and the boards include some very important people. And something is amiss with Goodwill, is all he's suggesting.
Yeah, he was suspicious.
But specifically, Goodwill, in Wisconsin at least, and I've seen this in other states because I am a thrift store aficionado, often has sales where they sell goods by weight. So it's like you pay by the pound on Wednesdays, say, for anything, clothes, furniture, etc. But this guy discovered that Goodwill adjusts its scales across Wisconsin, because he went to many stores, at least in the Milwaukee area, and tested this. So he would weigh something and find he had 3 pounds of stuff. But the Goodwill scale, when he got to the counter, would say he had 3.4 pounds.
Right.
And so he went, and being the math wizard that he was, this was a guy who makes his living selling old electronics on eBay, electronics that are supposedly more secure in the area of surveillance, because they were made a long time ago. It was very hard to understand. There's certain tape recorders and other things.
It was awesome. He was straight out of Charles Portis novel. We talked about it. Yeah.
But anyway, so he figured out, using multiplication, that across Wisconsin, Goodwill was skimming like $2 million a year just by having maladjusted scales. And his ringing cry was, I called weights and measures on them. And many of us don't realize, I think at this point, a lot of us realize that even the post office has, a police force, and that certainly various other bureaucracies have teeth and the ability to come in and do armed raids. But few of us think about the powers assigned to Weights and Measures.
I mean, it's such a great idea that there's a Weights and Measures police force, and the funny thing is, you and I both looked at each other like, what's he talking about? And then he looked at us like, how do you not know that there's a Weights and Measures department?
And our audience should know, before we go back to the main channel of our discussion, that the guy knew who Matt was, so he expected a full investigation.
Right.
But this hasn't been blown wide open by now. It must be a terrible disappointment to this guy. He thought he had this premier investigative journalist. He'd done all the footwork. He called in the authorities. We knew the ratio of maladjustment to the goodwill scales across Wisconsin, and yet nothing has happened.
And the really funny thing is, if you added it all up, the extreme far end of the possible amount of money that they could have been skimming, right, is like $8 or something like that. But
across the country, maybe that's why Stephen Colbert was fired. Maybe there is a slush fund for liberal talk show hosts made up of the amassed profits from all the maladjusted scales of goodwill across 50
That's
states.
how they do it.
That's how they do it. Yep. Matt froze.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I froze for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how they pay for these advances.
Yep.
It's an accumulation of all of the overweighing of goodwill sales. But you're right. There's like this intermediate purgatory state of these books. How do they do that, Walter, that these books don't sit there for free? And as you say, the pages are still on. They're like, it's like one solid block of paper. The pages have never been flipped open.
What was the famous Michael Kinsley stunt? The journalist Michael Kinsley, he inserted a note into some book at a library or bookstore and said that if you get this note, call me and I will pay you $100 or something. And nothing ever happened, because you see, the life cycle of a book is, and I know, having written them, and you do too, but Matt's sell because he's a cheeky, well-known journalist. Mine are sort of semi-depressing existential studies of unhappy business consultants on the road. And
well, so your books have outsold mine 10 times over. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I've been anyway. So what happens is that the books are published, then they're unread, then they're put into thrift stores, and then the thrift stores pulp them. I have a local thrift store and I'm friends with the owner, and she told me that their dump fees are incredible, that basically people don't, in a lot of areas it's expensive, like garbage is weighed, so people take their garbage to thrift stores, essentially stuff that they isn't worth being charged for in their own trash can. And so that's the life cycle of a political book. Why does it get $10 million, $20 million? Well, are the publishers part of a graft machine? Do they somehow?
It has to be.
But where do they get the money?
Right. Because in every other enterprise, these big capitalist corporations, they don't just routinely make the same spending error over and over again, although that's happened in Hollywood lately. But they're not going to just lose millions of dollars for the principle of doing it over and over again. They don't do that with other writers. I mean, how does it work with politicians? I don't understand it. Like in Russia, it was a straight out scam. It was it was some gangster was funneling the money to a publisher, and that publisher was paying off the politicians. But how does it work here? I don't know.
America, Saturday night I went over to a neighbor's house, and we had steaks, and he was playing UFC fights, and there was a lot of really red-blooded political discussion. And there was a guy there who'd lived in Russia. He had a Russian wife. He was getting divorced from her just now, but they made it 9 years. He
Above
said,
average. Mhm.
well, he said, I've never been there, Matt, but he said, you would go into Russian clubs in the early 2000s. He said it was like a James Bond movie. It was
Oh
like
my God.
every single kind of bewitching young woman you wanted or could imagine wanting was there, 9 years later, well, whatever. But the thing that he said was, you go to Russia and you see naked the skeletal version of the corruption that in America is beautifully dressed and doesn't even look like corruption. It looks like the media or show business or whatever it might be.
That's exactly right. I mean, the metaphor I always used to use when I came home was in Russia. It was like, those tours, you look at the ocean in a glass bottom boat, and you go on a boat and
Right.
everything looks nice and clear. That's what corruption looks like in Russia. It's like right out in the open. I mean, the money's coming out of the person's pocket as they're going out to give the speech and everything. And they published sex tapes of the when they dump the compromat on in the papers. So you come back at here and but this is the one scam that I haven't figured out how it works in the United States. Like in all other areas, it's kind of transparent.
Well, increasingly, the publishing industry is dominated by very few companies, and in
That's good
America, it's Bertelsmann and I think Penguin. Or are they the same now? I can't remember.
I can't keep track. Is Random House Penguin? Is Penguin like
one is German and one is British, I believe. Neither is based here. So how they resupply the money that they shovel to our politicians, could happen abroad in some way. And they're conglomerates. So maybe they get contracts. Basically, government contracts that give
that's
them.
Probably where it's probably like a what's the government agency that we went through earlier this year with all the revelations?
USAID.
USAID, yeah. It's probably USAID money on if you follow it 16 iterations back, that's probably where it comes from somehow. I don't know.
Right. It starts in your pocket. It goes to Washington as taxes. They send it to Zambia for a consciousness raising conference that costs
$8.
supposedly $2 million, but really costs $9 million. $1 million of it goes to the warlords, and then $1 million somehow wins its way to Pearson or Bertelsmann or somebody in Germany. And then it all ends up back in Joe Biden's. And, were there any big Trump books? Were they, in other words, after the first Trump administration, were there any big books that came out of it? Or were people too afraid because they knew the money would just be taken by lawyers?
I don't even know. Has Trump written a book lately? I mean, The Art of the Deal still sells, I think.
Right.
And it's almost interesting. I think that book's interesting.
Well, those were self-help books.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Trump was smart enough to provide information that supposedly you could use to, make money yourself.
Yeah, it was like Persuasion or one of those books, right? Or, but yeah, no. The new thing is almost by definition, the new books are not interesting. Like that's one of the characteristics of them is that they have no individual style, wit, insight, anything else. It's just banal titles.
I'll tell you a secret. Okay, I live in downtown Livingston in a building that was an office building that I bought at some point because it was falling apart and it was cheap. And in one of those offices, one of Hillary Clinton's books was written, okay, by a ghostwriter. I can't say who because there were NDAs involved, but I have had insight into how these books get written. And not only are they overpaid for, you can be sure that much of what is in them is not true. Okay.
I zapped out for a second. What happened?
Well, I said, not only do the publishers overpay for the books, and not only do people not really buy them and they end up in savers, but you can be sure that the contents are mostly so much massaged, expurgated, redacted, and changed as to be completely worthless. So there is absolutely no value at any point along the, production chain.
And that's funny because that's true of the speeches too. So one of the details, the few details from these books that I remember in Shattered, I forget who the authors of Shattered were. It was actually written by journalists, not Hillary, but they had access, and Hillary's launch speech was written by 20 people. And they talked about how this was a theme throughout the campaign. There were just too many voices, and there was no single message, because you can't have, a real theme with 20 authors, can you?
Well, if that was how her speech is written, my information is that's how her books are written too. People sit around in a big circle and discuss the reality that they wish to construct for the page, and remember how much trouble she got in with the book that had her coming out of a plane under fire in Kosovo or whatever it was.
Oh, right. Yes.
I mean, she's actually been called out for her poetic license. I have no idea about Comey's books. I mean, he's a novelist too, so that's the weird thing about Comey. Like, he doesn't just write nonfiction. And whoever does it, I think really should go home to their family and repent. I mean,
so isn't it like a James Patterson AI that does it? Like,
well, now it'll be all AI. And there are people, like, I have paranoid military friends who by the time civilians get a certain technology, the military has had it for 15 years, and so that would mean that we've had large language model AIs for at least a little while. And I have a feeling they wrote most of these books that have appeared in the last decade or so.
So I actually had this thought. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but as I was reading that Higher Ground, or
That Hideous Strength.
That Hideous Strength. I'm sorry, I confused.
That
it
was
with the
Comey.
thing. That was Comey, exactly. That Hideous Strength. I had the gaping and dribbling head image as I read that book. I actually imagined that it was the James Patterson, and that's how all these celebrity / politician allegedly written thrillers are made, that they have like a disembodied James Patterson head that writes the Comey book. The Obama did one too, right? Didn't he write
a novel?
A novel, yeah. I'm pretty sure.
So you and I have a friend who is on Twitter as the Hunt for Tom Clancy, and he's a big Tom Clancy guy. And it's unclear to me, talking to him, whether Tom Clancy was ever real himself. I mean, he was a real person, and he, his books kept coming out after he died for a long time. But he was a service, as I understand it, to the defense and military establishment. Because if Tom Clancy, for example, put a weapons system into a book, or a prototype for a weapons system, then Lockheed could be confident it would actually get bought by the Pentagon. So there would be a competition to embed in Tom Clancy novels various weapon systems or, strategies that people wanted Ronald Reagan, for example, to sign off on. And so that is another angle to all this that I don't think we understand, which is that a lot of these books are ways of floating advertisements for defense contracts.
So you send a bunch of money to Zambia for a conference that doesn't happen, so that you can buy a book by an author who's actually 20 people, so
Right.
that a message can get in front of another politician who will spend even more public money on another project.
No, so you and I invent a freeze ray, okay?
Mhm.
A freeze ray that over distances of 9 feet or so can cause somebody to get frostbite, okay? We then get together 100 grand and we go to, whoever is the Robert Ludlum,
Right.
from the pen of Robert Ludlum, a ghostwriter, and we say, can you put the freeze ray in here as a thing that finally kills, the Russian spy? And then Pete Hegseth reads it and goes, why don't we have a freeze ray? And our pre-planted, guy says, actually there is one. It only works at 9 feet, but it's incredibly effective. And
right.
next week, you and I are in the Cayman Islands,
That's right. Because of one sentence,
Yeah.
he pulled out his throbbing death ray and melted Nesterikov on the spot. Right. And that's how it works. God, there's so many angles to all this. I mean, the other thing I was thinking as you were telling that story about the garbage, there must be like a conventional wisdom landfill somewhere, right? Like a place where it's just a gigantic bunker of dead books that nobody ever read.
It's like
I
that,
hope that's
it's
true.
like that seed bank that Bill Gates supposedly funds somewhere, above the Arctic Circle in Norway or something, the doomsday seed bank, so that we can grow wheat again if the entire world is fucking nuked. And we'll have a seed bank of political books, because I can tell you that if they just republished ones from 15 years ago under a new name, nobody would know the difference.
Right.
Like the entire cycle of storytelling in political books, I didn't have a father, but I did have a mother who cared about me, and a grandparent who sacrificed everything. Like,
oh yes, that's right. Yeah, that's like a trope in almost every one of the books, right?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, you have a wound that causes you, to be yearning and ambitious, and yet you insecure. And to identify with people who suffer, and the American people and the little man. But you also have a sponsor, a mentor, somebody who, I don't know why, but they just see your promise like no one else. A teacher, a grandparent, a drunk downtown who sits on the bench and goes, "You're going to be president." And between those two, you get it together. It's a hard fight. Your spouse and your family are at times disgusted, and you feel bad, but you drag them along and you thank them in the acknowledgments. Then you have a legislative or some kind of breakthrough, and it's none of your doing. It was everybody else.
That's right. It's our victory.
It was your teammates.
Yeah.
Politics has been very, very good to me.
I'm just doing whatever I can to help the team win.
Right.
I want to thank the Lord for all praises. Well, yeah, exactly. All those elements. Actually, what we should do? Maybe the audience can help us write the unified field theory title for all these books. Like whoever comes up with the best combination of all of these words, like becoming a higher loyalty in the room.
Becoming higher.
Right, becoming a higher in the audacious.
Higher ground.
Yeah, right. Becoming. Yeah, so let's get that together, and maybe we can spare people having all these different books and just have one.
But you see, but this is the original AI use case. You know what I mean? Because really there's only about 300 words that they can choose from, and the result has to be banal and can't evoke anything bad from the past. Like you can't use the word blood in there. You can't say my, You can, as in my struggle or mine.
Right. You can't say the way, my way.
But in
my-
a
my-
weird way, you probably have to refer subconsciously to Mein Kampf the most, because really, aren't they all Mein Kampf? I mean, they all are. Is that not the template? Let's face it, dude.
This is such a Spy Magazine feature, the Mein Kampf-o-matic, right? Oh my God, we have to make that.
Meine kleine Kampf. My little struggle.
By the way, you see, I've got him up on the my spies up there.
Meine kleine Kampf. But now I'm going to insert something just because I've wanted to say it. If I don't insert it now, I'll forget it. But it sort of touches on what we're talking about. And because this is a freestyle show, I had a correspondent, a friend, somebody who went to Washington with the new administration, who wasn't in politics before, was new to DC, and came in at a pretty high level, and wrote me the other day and said, wow, I found out the secret to everything that's going on here. And I said, what is it? And he said, it's a term called cold equity. I said, what does that mean? And he said, people talk about it all the time. Do you have cold equity in that? How much cold equity do you have in that project? And what it means is when you as a government employee have done favors for industry that you can't capitalize on until you leave government, you have cold equity in something. So let's say you have cold equity in the Lockheed freeze ray. You got it through the process. You got it approved. You got the contract, paid for. You now have cold equity in it. And when you leave, it becomes hot equity. And this guy told me, this is Washington. Everybody who's there working long hours, for 15 years in some faceless bureaucratic job, getting paid $163,000 at their peak, is actually doing it because they're establishing cold equity in some product, service, regulation, or something. And he said, they look at you and say, what do you got cold equity in? And if you say nothing, he said, it's like one of those cop movies where the corrupt cops are like, try to bring the new guy into the theft, the burglary ring, or, the shakedown ring, and he won't do it. And then,
right. Yes. Like the Serpico moment. Yeah.
Yeah. The Serpico moment. And he said, like, if you don't have cold equity in something that you're bragging about, they don't trust you.
That's right. You got to be on the pad.
They're like, what are you doing here?
Right.
We came here to get cold equity in the freeze ray or the, housing project or whatever it is. And
I'm sorry.
If you don't have a dishonest reason to be here in Washington, get the fuck out. And I went, well, that's it. I just saw the, unified field theory. It's cold equity. All these drones, all those, when you go to Washington, there's all these like people, they always have like a William and Mary t-shirt. They're 31, they're jogging, they're staying in shape. And
rock hard abs. Yep.
Rock hard abs. But they work shouldn't you be down in New York working for like Citadel Capital or, something where you're working on your yacht? Like, why the hell you went to William and Mary? You're good looking, you're fit, you've got abs. What are you doing here? Well, the answer is getting cold equity. And I think that the hostility to Trump can be explained by this. When Trump came in 2016, there were all these schlubs, tens of thousands of schlubs across Washington who had spent fucking 20 years getting cold equity in various projects that, Hillary was going to pay off on. They were going to leave. She was going to shunt the contract, and they're fucking cold equity. It's like they got debanked. It was like corruption debanking. Now what the hell do I have? I spent all this time getting this contract for all these people so that I could join this fucking, freeze ray firm out in Torrance, California. And now it's fucking gone.
That's such a they spent all those years sort of deep throating the cold equity
Yeah.
shaft, and now you come out you want to convert it into hot equity by
Right.
writing James Patterson's Mein Kampf,
And,
right?
and he said it's true. It's true of every one-star general. It's true of every bureaucrat above a certain line. It's true of all of them. You know, they're all waiting for their damn payoff. And, you know, they probably even have a cold equity like spouse out there, like their current spouse. They're going to burn as soon as they get, you know,
Get the real spouse.
yeah, they're going to get the hot equity spouse out in Laguna Beach or wherever, you know. So,
or Sevastopol, more likely.
Right. You
Yeah.
know, and there was Hunter Biden. I mean, the cold equity king. I mean,
Oh my God. Yeah.
except he would get he was smart enough never to join government in the first place, so that he could get hot equity constantly and spend it. I mean,
He was
Did
the
it-
cold
did it-
equity orgasmatron. You just had to be near him,
right?
right?
Did a check ever last more than 3 days in a Hunter Biden bank account? You know,
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
but anyway, I really do, and I'm quite serious, think that this guy. So I said to him, he said, when they ask me why my wife and I are here, what kind of cold equity you got, and we can't answer, they're like, so what the hell are you doing here? Like, he was being literal. This was not a joke. And I said, well, you have to come up with some fake corruption then.
Right.
You have to come up, answer yes to that question and say, you know, actually we have a simultaneous translation software program that we're getting into the CIA, and when we leave, you know, we're going to become board members,
Right.
and sell it to Bertelsmann or Penguin.
Right.
And I said, you're going to need a story or they're going to off you. You know, you're going to wake up in the bunk one night with everybody like pounding you with baseball bats.
Okay, so that's the formula. You build up the cold equity, you get out, you join the board of sort of blood-sucking vampire corporation Inc., right? Or blood-sucking vampire incorporated, and then you write Mein Kampf to get a little extra. It's like two ways of liquidating or monetizing. the whole
But
thing.
you see, the thing about this that's interesting is that the cold equity gatherers are smart. They stay below the line. They're not, you know, they're not above the line talent. They don't get their names on the marquees. You know, one time I was driving around Hollywood, and I was watching all the beautiful cars go by in Santa Monica or something. And I was with somebody who lived there, and I said, you know, the movies aren't that successful. TV's not that big a deal. Like, where do all these cars come from? And they said, lawyers, you know, people fighting over movies that don't get made, people suing each other, people, you know, serving food to whatever, like all the ancillary stuff. Those are the smart people. The stars are the sacrificial lambs. We've got to put them up there to capture the imagination of America. But really, all the money's in this vast, like, you know.
Yeah, Jeff Connaughton called it the blob, right, in Washington. But
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so the cold equity people know to keep their heads down. Like, they get out with like, I got out with 17 million, not a fucking scratch on me, dude. Nobody knows my name. Let's go look at my boat.
So that's why politicians suck so much, is because they're trying to build up cold equity so they can get paid later for their bad ideas now.
Dude, did you see John Bolton's house? It was worth arresting him just to get the shots of his fucking house.
We have a picture of his house.
Do you see it? I mean, the dude lives in like a castle.
That's awesome. I hope he has a suit of armor. That would be great.
He's supposedly worth $100 million, Matt. John Bolton.
From what?
Not even Michael Bolton's worth that. And Michael had some like hits among real estate agents.
Does he have pure Raytheon in his bloodstream or something like that?
Like, what do you do? He designs custom wars for you know, preferred climate. client.
That's right. He's
I-
a bespoke war tailor.
I can get you into a war in East Africa that people in the United States won't even get news of. We're looking at 3,000 casualties. We'll have to build schools afterwards. We're going to raise a few schools. We're going to destroy a few water treatment plants. It's going to last 6 months. It's going to be mostly waged with grenades and, a few of these rifles. And you can clear 150 million. And like I say, no one in America will even know it happened. They're like, John, that's great. Can I write you a $15 million check right now? No, write it to my foundation, or whatever.
Wait, do we have that picture? Can we see? No.
Okay, I saw a different shot of it.
Yeah, no, we can't quite see that. There's got to be a different one.
That's the servants' quarters.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's the that's for the hamsters or whatever it is.
And they all have horse farms, but you never see them on a horse. Really? Do you see politicians on horseback anymore? I wish I saw more, frankly. I don't. Reagan was the last one who really made something of going around on horseback.
Trotsky. Well, that was before Reagan.
Trotsky was on horseback.
Yeah. It's a long story. I won't tell it. But during the Civil War days, he used to ride around with his gigantic leather overcoat and a horse to inspect the railways and stuff like that.
But I suspect that John Bolton, I don't know this. I'm not the reporter that you are. I'm just a good guesser. I suspect that John Bolton will be exposed as someone who designed custom wars for people.
Right.
Or at least got you in on custom wars that others had designed. Listen, Cheney's got one. It's great. It's in the stands. It's between two stands in the middle of Central Asia. It's over nothing. It's over a fishery on the Caspian Sea.
What the fuck a stand?
Right. It's over a disputed crab fishery on one of these lakes, on one of these salty lakes in the middle of
the ex-Aral Sea. Yeah, right.
It's between two tribes that have always hated each other. You can be sure they'll fight to the death. We drop Kalashnikovs with them and ARs with them, and there won't be anybody left to tell the tale. And,
right. There'll be one person left with a mustache at the end. Yeah.
And all we have to do is rebuild the desalinization plant and restore the crab fishery. And that's 37 million to you and your son. You in?
It's so funny. We're laughing a lot, but I spent a lot of time after the financial crisis basically just figuring out how they monetize financial corruption. So like the SEC commissioner goes to work for the corporate defense firm after letting off the bank for the mortgage fraud scheme or whatever it is, and then they get paid with a partnership on the law firm, right? So that's probably all it is. It's like all cold equity schemes. You work in government for a while in some regulatory agency where you let shit go, or you give contracts to somebody else, and you get out and you get paid, and that's the whole thing. Right.
Why did Trump hire Bolton, by the way?
So that was one of the interesting things about last week is that he talked about how Bolton he was one of the worst, but whenever I had to negotiate with somebody, they thought I was serious because John Bolton's in the room, he's gonna drop bombs on them. Or something like that. It was really funny, actually. I thought,
remember the
that's
beginning
actually kind of smart.
The beginning of Apocalypse Now, where they call Martin Sheen in and tell him to go find Kurtz and terminate with extreme prejudice.
Harrison Ford.
Right. But there's a guy standing in the room who never speaks, who's just, scary. And that's what John Bolton is. In fact, a John Bolton impersonator could probably make money. I mean, there were probably 3 of them that people from other countries thought was John Bolton.
Oh my God. That's a script in itself. Bolton's, right? Yeah. Instead of Heather's.
He'd just come in. He'd pop his head in the room, and Trump would say, "Listen, Bolton, get out of here. I don't want you and your war-mongering ass as part of this negotiation. And then he sends him out, and then he says to the prince of whatever, listen, you don't want Bolton on your ass. So let's do this my way, okay? Because
Right.
his way isn't going to be good. The guy,
It's going to be
nerve
like
gas.
nothing you've ever seen before.
yeah, nerve gas, schmerv gas. Bolton doesn't care. The laws of war.
So is this officially our longest digression that we've ever had?
It's not a digression anymore because it now is so much bigger than the river that it supposedly came out of, that it is the main river. It's like calling the Mississippi a digression from the Missouri.
Look at the comment. What's the movie with all the mini Hitlers in South America? The Boys from Brazil. So it's the Boltons from Brazil, right? So it's anyway. So it's Mengele making Boltons. There's too many Nazi metaphors.
Right.
So okay, before we go completely off the rails, we got to get to the Colorado thing.
Okay.
So the other side, the flip side of the stupid flag waving scheme is flag burning scheme is the Kelly Loving Act in Colorado. So this is what you were talking about. Everybody's got to make everything against the law now, right? And can we see that? What's the sod on this? We have where Governor Paulus talks about this. Do we have some of that? Oh, it's a TV report. Here we go. Yeah.
First on Fox 21, multiple groups are suing Colorado over the Kelly Loving Act, a new law expanding transgender protections in our state, with those behind the suit claiming it violates free speech and parental rights.
Fox 21's Carolyn Felling spoke with people from all sides to see how they feel about the lawsuit. Carolyn, what can you tell us?
Scott, Rachel, the Kelly Loving Act is named after a transgender woman who was killed in 2022 Club Q shooting right here in Colorado Springs. And under the law, to intentionally misgender or dead name someone is considered a discriminatory act.
What's at stake here is the protections for transgender Coloradans.
The bill should have never been written.
The controversial Kelly Loving Act now heads to court after parent advocacy groups filed a lawsuit to make sure the new law does not go into effect.
Colorado now is passing these laws to make sure that we keep our protections in state.
My daughter doesn't have the ability to choose who she shares her safe spaces with.
The act allows a person's chosen name to qualify as gender expression, which is protected under the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act. That means if a person intentionally misgenders or dead names a transgender person, they are breaking state law.
I dare you to come after me for telling the truth, for calling a man a man.
When I changed my name, I know it was really difficult for my family because they had named me for a purpose, and that purpose then seemed lost or changed for them.
The group defending education is behind.
My head's going to explode.
So Matt, do you ever wonder if really what there is some sort of studio? You know how influencers will rent a mansion together and they'll each do their live streams from different rooms?
Right.
Do you wonder sometimes if those two people maybe are in the same house?
It's a costume change.
Yeah, but they're in the same house, and like one person is playing the outraged, evangelical, and the other person is playing the fucking trans rights, Rachel Maddow glasses person, and they do these roles, and then maybe after 6 months of maybe they gain a little weight or lose a little weight or change their hair color, then they swap and they keep going, because that's what it feels like. Once again, I guess being a free speech person, I have to say that the right to call anybody whatever you want by whatever name you want, even if it's Shorty, McShorty penis or whatever, should be. You see, it's hard for me to see this happening in the West. That's Colorado, okay?
Right.
Colorado used to be a real state, and they used to have like frontier law there, and they did have politicians on horseback, and miners would fight ranchers in the state legislature and so on. and now they're doing this. What?
I mean, I was amazed when I saw the Trump flag burning thing. I thought that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. This is stupider than that, like by a lot. That mother is completely right. Like, how can you penalize somebody criminally for telling the truth? That's what that law is going to do.
Because it's not the truth, Matt. Haven't you been following the thinking on
I know.
this?
This is the whole Catherine Marr, the truth gets in the way of getting things done and all that
Well,
stuff.
Gender is a personal truth. It has nothing to do with the truth. It's not written in the fucking sky or the Bible or inscribed in our genes even. It is a choice. It's along a spectrum. If somebody wants to be called Kelly Loving. Also, can we stop naming laws after fucking crime victims? I'm sorry.
I know. The Brady Bill, yeah, that was the first one I remember, Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, crime victims have already been victims once. And God bless their families and everyone who, but remember, it was the American Most Wanted guy. Remember?
Yeah, the Adam
Walsh
thing,
law, and then now we have what's the alert, the thing on your phone,
the Amber Alert,
the Amber Alert, and so on. I mean, let's stop freaking making everything so personal, and because that hijacks the human brain when everything is named after somebody who got murdered. And so that the minute you think of the law, you think of the murder, or you think of Kelly Loving. Are you for or against Kelly Loving, Matt? Let's set aside the whole principle of this, Matt. Do you feel bad? Do you feel bad about her dying or him dying? Or
yeah,
not?
you must be a real monster. Yeah, it is manipulative, right? I mean,
it's crazy. And the latest, on the Republican side, it's the Laken Riley Act. She was killed by, an illegal immigrant or whatever. But let's put in some rules for the good of all the people. I think it's high time that we take the temperature down, and naming laws after violent crime victims could probably be something we could all agree on is tearing us apart mentally.
And
they don't need to come to the State of the Union either.
Oh, yeah, that's true too. Well, look, it's just all that is that political theater with I mean, at this point, everything is such a bummer that it is connected with politics in any way. But
I have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
This Optimus Prime robot that's coming, the white robot that Elon Musk is saying is,
no, I don't know what it is. What is it?
What? The Optimus Prime robot is going to be the biggest consumer product of all. Everybody's going to have their own as a servant. The days of, by the way, PJ Woodhouse, Jeeves as a robot, that's going to be my bestseller. Anyway, I think that our legislature should all be replaced by robots, that they should sit at home in their districts and command drone style robots who do all of the congressional debates. So if you go up to Capitol Hill for one of your biannual hearings that you do, instead of being screamed at by people and accused of things, it'll be a bunch of robots sitting there speaking in dispassionate voices.
I like that.
I'm tired. I'm tired of the theater. I am. It's wearisome. The personalization of law, the making of everything into hate or love, the emotionalizing of our political process. It's kindergarten. And like I say, the right-wing people and the left-wing people, I'm not a both sides people. I believe that there's right and wrong on various issues, obviously, and I have my sympathies and I have my sort of principles. But when I see those ping pong matches go back and forth between that kind of person and this kind of person, both dressed for the part and using emotional language, I go, please, let's stop, man. I mean, well,
especially when you end up with a spiral, which is what this speech thing is. It's just ping pongs back and forth between two different versions of we want to outlaw this for this thing that we don't like, this type of expression that we don't like, and this is different. It's not like those other free speech issues that you thought about before. This is something that's totally different. So don't think it's the same. So we have to make that against the law. Then the other side says, well, we have to make this against the law because this is we're in a very dangerous, precarious situation. And then it becomes like a never-ending cycle of stupidity.
So there's a theory in immunology that if you grow up in a non-sterile environment, like on a farm where there are lots of animals and dirt and manure and everything, you will have immunity for the rest of your life. But if you grow up in a sterile environment, in an apartment building, with all synthetic materials, and, you wash with soap every day and your hand sanitizers, you won't be immune to anything. And the smallest pathogen will take you down. That's true of this hate speech thing too. The more and more this language gets eliminated, the more and more the symbols are protected, and everybody's feelings are accommodated, the more violent seeming it is when somebody finally gets fed up and says something.
It's true. It's true.
So they create the violence through tamping down the level of discourse to the point where anything with any passion in it feels like insanity, like an attack, like World War III. And instead, I think we should have mandatory hate speech. Okay.
So people can get it off their chest.
Well, we could have hate speech day. It would be like a Star Trek episode,
right?
Where all of a sudden, Kirk turns to Spock and goes, "You freaking bloodless insect of a Vulcan, bug boy," But no.
Or the what about Bob, where he has the Tourette's outburst of
right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But there should be one day when in congressional debate when everybody is required to use the ethnic slur appropriate to their adversary.
Right.
Listen, Pocahontas, you and your WAP friend, and hey, Bernie, Jew, shut the hell up. And then they go,
wait,
get your cracker ass out of here, you fucking redneck dumbass.
You can't even say that. Like, it's shocking to watch, for instance, Full Metal Jacket now, like
right.
All the different slurs that are in there. At the time, it was just funny. Right now it comes off like a Don Rickles routine. But what happens is you end up having to go back on it, which is what happened. Didn't the DNC just try to reintroduce, or the third way, or whatever it was?
So there's a Politico story about some group called Third Way. You know what? I distrust all third ways. By the way, all attempts to split the difference. It comes from the Bible. Hot or cold, but if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out of my mouth. If you're a third way, I'll spit you out of my mouth. But they're pleading for left, or for the Democrats, to abjure, eschew the use of this huge list of words that a year ago were practically legally protected.
Right. Like they were just protecting the other words. So can we see that story?
Yeah, it's basically like a complete reversal on the white dudes for Harris thing. They're suddenly realizing that they've gone like lemmings over a freaking cliff with this language thing, and that by readjusting, they could be popular again.
Yeah. So what are some of the words? Let's see. Here's the memo. Let me get it up. So the story's called. The memo's called "Was It Something I Said?" So that there's a whole thing about therapy speak, and they say these words say, "I'm more empathetic than you, and you are callous to hurt others' feelings." So privilege, violence, as in environmental violence, dialoguing, othering. Walter, I was saying this years ago. I'm so sick of people using nouns as verbs. And it just upsets me for no necessary reason. Triggering, microaggression, progressive stacks, centering. I hate that word. We have to center whatever. Safe space, holding space, body shaming. And what's hilarious about this is they frame this in terms of you can't use the safe space language because it makes people uncomfortable. Be aware of words proliferating in elite circles that have closed off open conversations, and it made it uncomfortable for many people to engage in hard topics. Do they not see the irony in that?
Well, the funny thing is that they're using the same concepts that gave rise in the first place to argue that they shouldn't be used anymore. In other words, saying holding space is how it, makes people feel othered. Okay, so first of all, they should have synonyms. They should suggest synonyms, because is there even a synonym for holding space? Like, I don't even know if the concept exists apart from that term.
I don't even know what holding
space is actually kind of like shamanic new age language for, creating a zone where someone can be. I'm holding space for you.
It's like claiming space, right?
No, it doesn't. It actually doesn't have to do with space as a physical dimension. It has to do with space as an emotional field where I'm keeping this emotional field intact so that you can come into it. I'm holding space for you. I know you're grieving, whatever. A lot of these words are so vaporous, vacuous, and ambiguous. They literally don't have synonyms. Like they wished them into existence. They're like magical formulas. Like, what is a microaggression called if you don't want to use that word? What would you call it?
Well, the whole point of a microaggression is that it's a stupid concept.
But in other words, is there a synonym for it? Or did
you just don't use it. That's the whole point. Don't think it. Don't, right? I mean, a microaggression is not an aggression. That's the whole point.
So seminar room language, let's go down this list here.
Yeah. So subverting norms, systems of oppression, and critical
subverting
theory.
Norms. Dude, they use that at the highest levels about Trump on the international scene all the time. Is rules-based international order on here?
It's not. No, I don't think. Existential threat. Walter, how many times did we talk about existential threat? That's like the ultimate drinking game, political drinking game word for the Trump era.
I'm actually going to object here to a couple of things. They're not going to use the word postmodernism. Postmodernism, it's a little bit abstruse, but it names a real thing. It's an aesthetic movement that is all about the combination of different styles of discourse that are usually kept separate, lumped together. Okay, Overton window is a name for the acceptable field of discourse in any area. Like, the Overton window on the Kennedy assassination, say, is widened when certain documents are disclosed. We can talk about it as a conspiracy, whereas it used to be closed and you could only talk about it as Lee Harvey Oswald. Well, so those are actually useful terms that I don't know should be thrown away. The Democrats or the left or the third way people or whoever it is that is sponsoring this initiative, I guess, is afraid of just seeming both politically silly,
wonky,
and pretentious.
But in doing so, they're being even more pretentious. So like if you go down to the next one,
shareholders, they're not going to use it. Stakeholders.
Yeah, organizer jargon, right? So
stakeholders, without stakeholders, the World Economic Foundation can't even explain its policies or its philosophy.
Right. Stakeholders, I don't know how you could replace that word, but the other ones like the unhoused, housing insecurity, person who immigrated. So this is the whole person first destigmatizing language.
Oh, and
movement.
now, right as fucking Colorado is, getting ready to throw dead namers in jail, they've got a gender list.
Yeah,
They're-
we're gonna try to unwrap birthing person.
Dead naming is literally on there.
I know.
So Colorado's making dead naming illegal, but they're using the word dead naming verboten in political circles.
And radical transparency, by the way, isn't that's Assange's theory, isn't it?
I don't know if he was the one who came up with it. So let's think about what's really going on here. Chest feeding, disgusting. I never heard I never heard an actual person.
That word
use
is like
it.
an ice pick in your ear when you hear that word. Oh,
It's like a horror
Ugh.
movie.
right? I would
LGBTQ
rather see a baby eaten by a Komodo dragon than hear that word. Like, more
Dude,
than 5 times.
LGBTQA plus is on there.
No. Is
Yeah.
it on there?
What? Okay. You
Wait,
know what?
so they're going to stop the number of letters there?
Dude,
Are they going to start rolling back?
they didn't say which letters. Listen, I have a
Pretty sure
totally,
lesbian is a real thing, right?
I have a totally new theory on this. Oh, patriarchy? They're going to get rid of that? Dude, what do they have when they get rid of the word patriarchy? What are they against? What links you and me? If you're going to hate you and me, between cisgender and patriarchy, those are your biggest weapons. Otherwise, they're going to have to accept us again.
No, they're just going to have to make a new word.
Heteronormative. Okay,
But that already that's all they've been doing is creating new words for.
and now they're taking them
patriarchy.
away. Matt, I have a new theory. There are people who look at social conditioning and say one of the ways that you render a population compliant and apathetic and passive and despairing is by constantly changing the rules. Okay.
Yes,
It's something that you do to torture victims and interrogation targets.
this is absolutely true.
You come in and say like, "Hey man, you want a cigarette? I feel like a smoke." And then as the guy's lighting it, the new guy comes in, "Get the fuck out of here. What do you got a cigarette in your mouth for? You can't
Right.
smoke in here."
Right.
Well, that's what they're doing. I'm sorry. Wait a second. It was illegal practically not to use these words, or, you couldn't even get across a paper at an Ivy League or liberal arts institution without using most of them. And now you can't use them. I give up.
Well, but yeah, so you're absolutely right. So that if you read all those stories about the interrogations and like the gulags or, in Cambodia, switching up the routine is a key thing. So lights on all the time at night, or even Guantanamo Bay, they do this, right? Then no lights ever, then loud music, then absolute silence, then punishment for talking, then encouragement. It screws people up. It breaks their will after a while, right? And that's always been one of my objections about all this language policing, is that it's such an effort for people to keep track of all the new words that they're supposed to use, especially when there is no bad intention behind the old word, right? So like a homeless is not, you're not saying anything that's mean about the person by calling somebody
unhoused.
homeless, right?
Remember when it
literally
went
have
to
no-
the unhoused?
I don't remember exactly when it was, but I do remember being told that I wasn't supposed to use that word.
See, everyone has a history, even the most liberal among us. Even, maybe we have a gender studies viewer who at Swarthmore or at Mount Holyoke. I don't know. Somebody who has assiduously tried to keep up with the changes every time the commissars come down with this, because we don't know where this stuff starts, by the way. Where does it come from? The CIA? The Modern Language Association? The English Department of Harvard University? I have no idea where it starts.
Well, we saw some of it in like in the Twitter files and in some of those, like the Aspen Institute on Information Disorder, right, where they talked about how misinformation isn't just a current news issue, it's a historical issue. So we have to go back and change the way that people talk about things from the past. And so
But who gives the Stanford Internet Observatory,
right, that's
or
true,
the
yeah.
GEC or whoever it is, who gives them the list? Okay, I have another theory on this. They want to melt into the woodwork. Okay, they realize they've become too conspicuous because of their language.
Right.
They realize that on social media and in AI world and in all the other places where language is noticed, they can be found out quite easily. They want to start wearing the enemy uniform, or at least they want to start looking like civilians again, because they have to regroup. They're too out in the open. They're being flagged all the. See, this was useful when it could. This was useful when they could give you a boost because you use these words. You know,
right.
When it actually made the tweak to the algorithm, when they owned the algorithms, and you're like, if I say cisgender, I'll get twice as much engagement. Now they don't have those levers, perhaps, and they want to melt back and morph into something else. So this is a falling back, taking off your uniform and mixing with the civilian population phase of moving forward toward Brave New World or whatever.
So, and this is a great way to lead into this other topic. So, Ezra Klein just published a piece about AI that incorporates everything that you're saying. Basically, he wrote a piece, How ChatGPT Surprised Me. And he talks about how, the Google, the search engines have declined in popularity and people are tuning them out. But the new ChatGPT is really believable, and it can be your friend. And
Ezra Klein is, a cutting edge brainwasher. Okay, whatever they want to brainwash you about next will first appear in an Ezra Klein column. Okay,
it's totally true. But look what he says. He talks about how this is the first personal assistant that actually feels like here it is. What is it right? I found myself using it more and opening the Google search window much less, but something about it still felt false. And can we go down a little bit more? And gimmicky. Then it came out, then came a model that would mull complex questions for longer. And then I began to find startling flashes of insight or erudition when I posed questions that I could only have asked the subject issue experts before, but it remained slow, and the voice of AI, for a lack of a better term, grated on me. GPT-5 is the first AI system that feels like an actual assistant, and then he goes on to compare it to the movie Her.
They all do that. I mean, what? Come on.
But the point is, Walter, the AI is just a cleverer version of the old language policing algorithm. It's got a smoother, rounder surface to it.
Exactly. They don't need those words anymore.
Right.
The individual words are an artifact from the era of early Twitter. Okay.
Right.
They're an artifact from the era of Facebook. They were used as little watermarks, identifiers for people, so they could get into groups, be classed in groups, be boosted or unboosted, whatever. Now we have a rounder, mellower, more context-rich way of brainwashing you called AI. Now, notice it's ChatGPT, the brand name, not Grok.
I know.
He Sam Altman good, Elon Musk still bad, Peter Thiel, whatever. Thiel has been smart enough not to come out with a consumer product that everybody can,
bash, right?
Bash. But in any case, so Here's Ezra Klein. Ezra Klein is the person he's the Paul Revere of midwits. Okay. I'll say it again. Ezra Klein is the Paul Revere of midwits. He rides through the Westchester at night on his horse with a copy of the Sunday Times in his hand saying, it's time to whatever, embrace AI. Okay, that's what he's saying here. And he's basically saying it's so personal. It's so realistic. It's just like you have a friend or an assistant. I too was skeptical. I liked it even less than you did. I found it stiff, wooden, unconvincing, but yeah, exactly.
And look at what he says. Look, he goes to the place that I couldn't believe he actually did this. Can we search for the word lover in here?
He's building some cold equity in
There we go.
OpenAI is what he's doing.
But he says search is just AI's gateway drug. After you begin using it to find basic information, you begin relying on it for more complex queries and advice. Search was flexible in the past that it could take you down, but AI is flexible in the roles that it can play for you. It can be an advisor, a therapist, a friend, a coach, a doctor, a personal trainer, a lover, a tutor.
Dude, okay, you know what?
So this is like
he just doomed hundreds of thousands of people to lives of sterile insanity as they seek love using AI. Okay. Ezra Klein just started the approved movement into a new form of dehumanization. He said, okay, it's ready. It works. Go. Wow.
You can
woe unto you in the next life, Ezra.
I hereby allow you to mate with your AI, and there is a whole burgeoning literature of I dated my AI stuff. That's we joked about it with those like TikTok videos, but there's like every one of the major sites has done features on this. NPR has like a whole batch of them where people do these first person stories about, I went on a date with my AI dream guy, then I cried over my shrimp. I feel bad because of the story that he said, she said, it said I used ChatGPT as a couples counselor. How did we fare? And this one is funny because if you scroll down, the author's kind of like not fully on board, or there's a little bit of doubt in there. But
that's because it's my struggle.
Right, it's my struggle.
It's meine kleine Kampf. AI was bad to me. I didn't like it. I thought it was stupid. But I was in prison for a long time thinking, and then AI came to me and was my therapist.
So this is, that's the moment. Okay, so the test that she's going to use for how real is this AI is she's going to bring her boyfriend for couples therapy with the AI, and so the two of them unload to this AI, and then the author says, "What is the dynamic between these two people?" Right? And the ChatGPT spits out, one person, likely you, seems to be carrying more of the emotional labor. Like, come on. You don't think the AI is analyzing what you want to hear? Like, and so, wow, she's amazed.
Matt, this is cult. This is
ridiculous.
Cult recruitment. Ezra Klein is recruiting for the fucking ChatGPT cult right now. That's exactly what's happening.
Well, this is NPR, but
or NPR, and then what happens is, they bring it into your relationship. The third person. Remember polycules? Now we'll have cyber polycules, where like 3 of us are human, 2 of us are AIs. We have great sex. Sometimes I just sleep with the AI. Sometimes I sleep with an AI and human. But I find that when you sleep with the AI and the human, the satisfaction is off the charts. I was skeptical at first, but now let me tell you, There's no arguing with an orgasm. And when you've had a Chat GPT plus Derek Johnson orgasm, you know.
I mean, in fairness, she tries in the end to come back to you can't trust the machine, but not before genuinely engaging with it quite a lot. And there's a whole thing in there where she even asks the machine, hey, should you maybe not be so solicitous of me personally? Here it is. Can you correct yourself so that you are less biased towards my needs and consider both partners on equal footing? So she has to ask the AI to stop blowing sunshine up her ass.
Who is she? Who is she?
She's the author. I don't know.
What's her name? I want to see.
Emma Bowman, I think, is her name.
Okay. Young people of America, stop doing this. Stop putting yourselves in the service of these giant GovCorp initiatives, trying to break down resistance to the dehumanization campaign that will suck us dry and cause us to become a sterile race of, skeletal beings. Everybody's doing this at the same time. It reminds me of every damn psyop that we've had to deal with going back to when I was a kid in the 60s, and the more artificial ingredients there were in a food, the better it was for you.
Right. Polysorbate gum, number 7, whatever. Right.
Eat like an astronaut. That was how I grew up. The reason I'm not as tall as you, Matt, is because my mother decided, because she was a nurse and she was on the cutting edge of modern medicine, that I should have formula, and then I should have fucking Gerber's food, and then eat space food sticks and have Tang and etc. Not use milk in my coffee, but Coffee Mate, etc. All of this stuff, preservatives were good for you. The extra added Carnation instant.
Point, right?
I went to school having eaten Carnation instant breakfast, and my mom was a damn nurse. Okay. I lost inches as an adolescent eating Carnation instant breakfast. Now it's Ezra Klein who's peddling, Ezra Klein plus Emma getting together to make us feel like bringing AI into the bedroom is a good thing.
And it's like, it's more than them. There's a lot of them.
No, it's more than them. And they're building cold equity because they're all going to end up on the boards of these companies. I promise you. Ezra first, if he isn't already on the damn board.
He probably is an AI, right? I mean, I think somebody made this point already, but yeah.
Of course he is. He's an AI, but with none of the ease of an AI. You know what I mean? It's like, if I'm going to sell out, I'm going to sell out a lot harder than you, Ezra. Okay.
Right.
Literally, I'm going to get plastic surgery and do all kinds of things. And
that would be a great action movie. Sell hard, right?
Right. Yeah. I give myself a number and call myself Chat Kern. Okay. I'm not gonna keep up this masquerade that I'm a thinking man's public intellectual who just happened to get a job at the Times. I'm gonna wear a fucking CIA logo across my forehead,
And that's what I always just like about Thomas Friedman. Like he was unapologetically like just humping whatever trend you put in front of him, right?
Exactly.
And it was kind of like endearing a little bit. But this new thing with the robotic, sterile, they all wear the same glasses, they all have the same haircut, they're all the same gender. They're like the Hale. What was that? The cult, the Heaven's Gate cultists.
Yeah.
Right. They all look like that, and they have the same shaven writing style. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's creepy, right?
Come join the mothership, says Ezra Klein. Chat GPT. I too was skeptical. But then I tried it, and now I have love, and I have erudition, and I have a companion, and I write for the New York Times. You could do it too. they're they are all just ushering you down the road to perdition. Listen, I've had it. I'm Howard Beale. I have to stand up because I talked to a friend of mine, a college roommate. I won't use his name because he didn't know I was going to maybe cite the conversation, but he is a leading theorist of sort of McLuhan-esque media evolution. And he's on the left, and he has a podcast and so on. And he said, I have an AI consultancy. And I said, really? He said, but I can't think of one good thing to say about it. I just have an AI consultancy because people expect me to know about the latest, the latest trends,
Thingamadoodle.
the latest things. And I do have a lot of thoughts on it, but none of them are positive.
Right. But of course they aren't, because you're a thinking, feeling person, and this is naturally repellent, right?
I don't know if it is, but he said something interesting. He named a kind of famous literary agent who and I don't know if this story is true, so I won't use the guy's name, but a guy who works in the science field who said back in the 60s, like, you guys are all going to take acid. I'm not. I'm going to be the control group. We'll see in 30 years who comes out okay or who doesn't, That's how I am with the AI. It's like, I'm going to be the control group. See you in 20 years. Okay.
And it's funny because as I was reading that Ezra Klein thing and all that stuff, we're also reading this C.S. Lewis book, which is on exactly the same theme. This nice group that one of the main characters works for is trying to do exactly the same thing, like engineer, a transhumanist brain that will live forever. And the main character, we don't even have to talk about anything but this today, but there's a moment, he gets set up and for a murder and goes to prison and is sort of tortured in a 1984 style moment. But he realizes, he has this flash of intuition that he's just choosing the side, normal, everything else. And once he realized that rejecting that was rejecting all this pseudoscientific nonsense, because it's just what he felt. Everything else made sense after that.
Right. So we've made the mistake again of not naming the book, That Hideous Strength.
I'm sorry, yes.
By C.S. Lewis. Here's where we are in it. I'm about 50 pages from the end. And what has happened is that, what's the first name of the...
Mark.
Mark, who has been the initiate into NICE, which is a cross between OpenAI, the Manhattan Project, the WEF, USAID. It's everything in one, as a initiative to basically leave Earth, leave the body, leave morality, leave nature, and fuse with some, well, it now turns out, demonic intelligence that's coming in from space. I mean, the experience
The plot's kind of loony, but yeah.
The experience of reading this book is really quite extraordinary, because it throws wide open the possibilities. Like, there's a bear in this book. There's a character who is a bear called Mr. Boltitude, and the bear has thoughts. Like, C.S. Lewis's channeling of the bear's consciousness. The bear represents a kind of animal, primitive consciousness that is buried in nature and presumably is buried in evolution in all of us. And he does a few pages on the bear's feelings about getting syrup every week from its owners and how ecstatic it is when it gets. And he does a kind of bear channeling where it sees bees and it follows them to get honey and so on. And it's one of the most moving things I've ever read, and it's actually convincing. The other character that he brings to life as the antithesis of the of the technocrats, and he uses the word technocrat in the book. He finally uses the actual
Oh,
word.
that's right. Yeah.
Is Merlin?
I know.
The
The
Arthurian druid magician who is brought back to life and joins like what my friend Doug Rushkoff calls Team Human. So
Yeah, the
Merlin,
whole book is a competition to get Merlin's powers.
right. And the Team Human, who are a bunch of sort of Christian, traditional,
Yeah, the St. Anne's Project or something.
nature worshiping, nature loving, normal people. Actually, their main woman, who's this medium who's having these dreams, she's not Christian, but they kind of are convincing her toward the end that she needs to convert. They get Merlin, the reanimated Merlin, who's been like living in some kind of tomb under this heath or this meadow. They get him on their side. And the conversations with Merlin are fucking great, man. I mean, Merlin represents this. He's kind of a fascist, actually. I mean, he combines like bloody, druidic. He smells like seaweed and moles and worms and rats and pine trees and everything. He's a combination of nature and magic. Whereas on the other side, you have the disembodied head in this weird sterile room.
The gaping and dribbling head. I'm never going to forget that phrase.
Right. The gaping, dribbling head, which we find out at this like 4/5 point of the novel, is actually a channeling device for these demonic space entities called macrobes, as opposed to microbes. They're macrobes. And we see that the anti-human, the Klaus Schwab side, the Bill Gates side, really are involved with channeling these extra dimensional space beings through this severed head, which may as well be ChatGPT. And frankly, Mark, the guy who is the
protagonist,
the protagonist who's seduced by these people, should be called Ezra Klein.
Except that he has
except he's got more of a conscience.
Right. Yeah. His conscience actually activates at some point, which could happen with anybody. Right. But it's funny when you lay out all the different plot devices of this book. It's a lot. I'm not going to lie. Like in terms of part of what being a great novelist, I think, is the knowing how much you can stretch your audience's ability to balance difficult or outlandish concepts. Like when we're in 1984, like I never felt like I left that world for a second as I read that book. It was very convincing, but this book is like, it's just wild. It's like an acid trip. I know you're not supposed to, that's like one of the forbidden metaphors in magazine writing, never compare anything to an acid trip, but it is a little bit like that. But ultimately it's a very simple message, which is good and evil always exist. There's this effort to try to conquer nature with this scientific, quantitative method, to overcome God, always ends in failure, and you should listen to your heart and reject it. And just as a simple moral choice, it'll be easier, right? That way.
But it's not a book which holds out a merely sentimental.
No, I think it's a deeply moral
and intellectual. Mm-hmm. In other words, Lewis very persuasively and dialectically and logically and theologically is able to convince you, at least for moments, even if you're hostile to Christian thought or spirituality in its traditional forms. He's able to convince you that these other people, these sort of Nietzschean, Zarathustrian technocrats who are going to combine everything into one single intelligence. One thing he convinces you about nice is that they're only going to need one person ultimately. Like, in other words, they're going to create God. They're going to recreate God, and they won't need all this individuality business. And they also won't need nature. Lewis convinces you that, and insofar as this is progressivism, a version of sort of progressivism gone wrong, that they're going to sterilize and kill the earth. It's terracide that's going on here. And so Lewis not only identifies with Christian God and so on, but he identifies with peasants, with lower class workmen and servants, with fairies, elves, giants, ogres, animals, bears, everything that is sort of like dirty, human, old, messy, real. Lewis champions. On the other side, you have the dribbling head channeling macrobes that, from space. And you go, wow, that is madness. He's right. There's no brakes on it. And when Mark is sort of imprisoned, and they give him the hope that he will become very important in the nice movement. And they run him through some set of like desensitization experiments or exercises to make him, the new man. And Lewis demurs and won't describe them. He says that these experiments are sort of schoolboy level, but you get the feeling like he has to do things like eat worms and maybe like masturbate in front of people and do all these.
It's like the Ted Kaczynski experiments that they right.
Yeah, or the Gordon Liddy experiments that you did as a young person. I'll never forget. Right, like holding your hand in front of a flame, or whatever.
Yep.
So he does all these experiments that Lewis is too like polite to even describe, and you have the feeling they're sexual and they are digestive. He says you'll have to eat bad food. Lewis basically says that exposing yourself to constant ugliness will dehumanize you, and that's one of the techniques that's used. But you really do want to stop the train. You are with him in this book. You might, after you put it down, I'm not sure quite yet how it ends, suddenly go, it's not such a bad thing to want to have an AI lover and a polycule with a fucking computer and eat bug paste, or whatever. But as a description of the nightmare that is progress for its own sake, I don't think it can be beaten.
Yeah, so it's a very similar progression as 1984. He's trapped. There's this horrible sort of repressive totalitarian concept all around him, but he doesn't give in, and it actually works in this book. Like, so there's, in the midst of his suffering, it says something else, something he vaguely called the normal, apparently existed. He had never thought about it before, but there it was, solid, massive, with a shape of its own, almost something you could touch or eat or fall in love with. It was all mixed up with Jane, his wife, and fried eggs and soap and sunlight and the rooks cawing at Keira Hardy and the thought that somewhere outside daylight was going on at that moment. And so it's just the reality that there is something normal and real and alive out there, and he clings to it mentally and rejects this other thing, and he just makes that choice. And his idea is, as long as he does that, nothing bad can happen to him, and he's not even afraid of being killed or tortured anymore. And so it's a very profound book about rejecting all these things that we're talking about.
Right. And the way he comes to this epiphany about the normal is he's put in the room with the head, I think, and he realizes that the room is too tall and too narrow, and thus it's making him nervous and uncomfortable. And he realizes that, oh, wow, proportionality in architecture is actually a thing. That it's not arbitrary what we're used to. There are rooms in which you're comfortable and rooms in which you're not comfortable. And this is one in which I'm uncomfortable. And that epiphany about order, balance, proportion multiplies itself in his head to become this concept of the normal, or probably what Lewis would call natural law or whatever,
And it's very believable. And you know what? It's believable for all the same reasons that we're recoiling from these articles. It's just the thing that's in us. Like we don't want to fall asleep next to the Invasion of the Body Snatchers pod. Like there's something that tells us not to do that. We don't want to be told to love a machine. We want to love people, right? Like, and we should listen to that voice and not the other one. And the way he presents it is, it's a choice you have to make, and it's an eternal battle between people who think you can conquer nature and people who think you can't. And I think we're in that moment now. It feels like to me anyway. But
we may have been talking for 3 hours.
Yeah, but
we went so paisley and psychedelic in our conversation today. I have no idea how much time has passed. But I will say this about the book, that hideous strength. And that hideous strength that is revealed refers to the pure demonic, rational, scientific, numerical calculus behind the anti-human movement. Okay. I really think to be culturally literate, you must read this book at this point in history, if only to argue with it or reject it. But I have fought with it the whole time I've read it, because to be honest, like the Dungeons and Dragons, swords and sorcerers, Arthurian stuff has never appealed to me.
Yeah, that's not my thing either.
It never has. Magical animals, dragons, strange made up names, rainbows and mystical quests.
Sorry, just to interrupt. At the site we never launched it when I was at the Intercept, we were going to have a list of the only 5 movies, and so one of them was old people fucking, but the other one was dragons and shit. And I've never been into dragons and shit. So
I live in a town, Livingston, Montana, and this is a funny story, and then I'll stop so anybody can go home. And when I was here back in the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s, we have a grocery store. And I went into the grocery store one night, and there was a kid sitting at a table dressed in a Renaissance fair costume. He was dressed like Robin Hood or something, with a feather out of his hat. And he was signing his books that he'd published at the Insty Prints, at the Kinko's. He'd written books. Here I am, young published author, on his way. And I walk in, and there's this kid dressed like, he's out of fucking Robin Hood or the Canterbury Tales or a Renaissance fair with his self-published book. Okay. I go in, buy my things, leave. Well, a couple years later, that kid turns out to be one of the best-selling writers of all time in the United States.
Oh, was it Gary? What's his name?
No, his name's Christopher Paolini.
Uh-huh.
Christopher Paolini. He wrote a book called Aragon.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
Yes. And because another author who wasn't a dick like me got the book, bought the kid's book. His name is what's the name of the writer? He's the Florida mystery writer, the best-selling writer.
Oh, Carl Hyacin?
Carl Hyacin, who comes out to Livingston, bought the kid's book, gave it to his son on the drive back from Montana to Florida, and the son was quiet for like a day. And Carl looked back and said, "What are you doing back there? Why aren't you bugging me?" And he's like, "I'm loving this book." So Carl brings the manuscript of the book that was in the Albertsons to Knopf, and they publish it. And Chris Paolini's career is launched as an incredible best-selling writer. So even if I liked Dragon books, after having basically snubbed that kid and then having him exceed me by 10 million zillion copies, I can't afford to like them now. I can't give up now. I have to keep my snob, my snob factor. But I dropped it for this book because, damn it, it's affecting Merlin, a bear. You know, there aren't any dragons, but you know, spirits and other things, dwarves and ogres. I'm digging them.
And the ideas are right on the money in terms of how predictive they are about the whole transhumanist thing. Like it's actually uncanny in places. So fascinating to read. And yeah, those people are right. There's a reason they all have 15 year Netflix deals and stuff like that, and we don't. So anyway, we'll wrap that book up in the next show. And Walter, this was a fun conversation. We got all kinds of places today. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us, and we'll see you later this week.
See you then.